Hi everyone, I'm Izzy Lazarovich, broker and founder of Keter Advisors, an Israel-based real estate brokerage and advisory firm. I'd like to warmly welcome you to our latest webinar on buying property in Israel. Today's topic is especially timely for anyone considering purchasing a home or investment property here in Israel. We'll be discussing the topic of the basics of money transfer, how to efficiently and safely transfer funds from outside Israel to complete your real estate transactions in Israel. It's a very critical step in the buying process, and our guest today is an expert in the field. I'm delighted to introduce Dan Eisenberg, Chief Commercial Officer at Israel Transfer. Dan brings extensive experience helping clients navigate the financial side of Israel real estate deals, and I'm sure you'll find his insights invaluable. Dan, thanks so much for joining us today. How are we doing?
I am doing wonderful. It's August in Israel, so that means that there's no more camps and the kids are home and get to spend a lot of quality time with them.
Lots of fun, I'm sure. But at least you were able to break away and do this very valuable video, which I think people are going to get a lot of value out of. I know my clients who are coming to Israel now in August and looking to buy properties, it always seems like it's the first time for them. How do I do this? How do I transfer money? What's the timing of it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm not going to steal your thunder with your presentation, so it's all yours.
Okay, so I'm going to share my screen if that's okay.
Perfect.
Okay, are you able to see?
Now we are. We're good to go.
Okay. So the company that I work for is called Israel Transfer. We've been helping people send money to Israel to buy property since 2008. We know exactly what needs to happen to get the money from point A to point B, and then to make payments to all the people that need to be made payments to. So basically, everything that's involved with the real estate transaction up until the time the person gets the keys, whether it's new construction or existing property, we're able to handle everything. It's very important to point out that we are fully licensed at the highest licensure possible in Israel by the Anti-Money Laundering Authority and the Ministry of Finance. It's very important that to understand that not all companies have the same level of licensure. And you want to go with a company that has the highest level because that for the customer, there's a lot more protections that are in place by the government. When a company is dealing with more money, then they have more reporting to do with the authorities. So it just makes everybody stay on the up and up. It
Yeah.
also, we're required to have cybersecurity protection for your data and for your money, because you can imagine in today's environment when there are all these, protesters that Izzy and I have encountered in the States when we go to travel, that you can imagine there are people who would love to get their hands on the information of people from America looking to buy property in Israel. So we make sure that customer data is protected at all levels from the very beginning. So that's just a little bit where a person might not know that there's even a difference between the companies. So that's just an important consideration. So it's not just about getting the best rates, because you wouldn't go work with any lawyer just because they're the cheapest. Of course, we do have excellent rates, but it's also getting the full picture of what it means to be working with a um, with a with a large company. Personally, I made an aliyah from Riverdale, New York, 11 years ago. Back when I was making aliyah, I was wondering how was it that I was going to move my money. So I did my due diligence about all the different companies, and I chose Israel Transfer. Just so happens to be this is like one of those, only in Israel stories. My second Shabbat in Neve Daniel, where I live, one of the owners of the company happened to have invited me over, and through the Shabbos meal, as they say, Nish Shabbos geretten,
Yeah.
like we don't talk about it on Shabbos. So we didn't talk about it on Shabbos, but I was looking for a job because when I made Aliyah, when I was on the plane, I didn't know what I was going to be doing here. And they were looking for a person to do business development. And the owners of the company are both Brits. So to be able to take an American, I can open up a new market for them. And that was 11 years. So I started as a customer, but now I I then took the job. And I made my focus from the very beginning to work with people that are buying property because it's a very niche industry and there's a lot that's involved. So I decided that's what I'm going to make my focus. And through the years, I it's more than 1,000. I don't know if it's closer to 2,000 apartment purchases that I've helped facilitate. So
Amazing. Wow.
I've been there, done that. There's very rarely is there a situation that I have to scratch my head and think, how do we do this? Chances are I've done it hundreds of times before. So
That's huge because my biggest client fears that they express are, I typically want to do bank to bank. I want to send it from Chase to Bank of Polin. Why can't I just do that? Why do I need to go to a transfer company? And I try to tell them that there's a lot of potential problems along the way. And been there, done that is a great, you know, you must have experienced a lot of issues with the clients, and I've seen you in action. And the reality is that it's hugely important to save time and effort and efficiency when you run into these problems. Because if people are delayed, it's not just okay, we'll wait till Dan or another company fixes it. Sometimes you'll lose your deal. And in some cases, if it's a very competitive environment, they'll say you had until this date to send the money over, you didn't, and therefore the deal is negated. So been there, done that is a excellent advantage for
right. And when I'm doing my job well, and I'm gonna assume the same is with you, the clients don't even know what we go through because when we have clients that are in the States, they're sleeping while we're working. So they get it. We deal with all the craziness of real estate in Israel, and then they get an email in the morning saying we took care of everything for you. And Lamaisa, people are paying us for a service we're professionals, and they're paying us so that they don't have to have these headaches. The headache should be on us. So that's something that I take very seriously. And as you mentioned, potential breach is something that we never want to go for. Never want to have a situation where a person can have material loss or they can lose out on a deal. So I do everything possible to prevent this. So, and I'll go into some of the details
great.
a little bit, but just as a primer, so people can understand exchange rates, they are dynamic. So, some people they say, oh, I just divide by four. So when the exchange rate was at 396, then yeah, you can divide by four and it works. However, if here's a chart for the past 2 years, and you can see how much it goes up and down. In this section over here, it looks like there's a lot of fluctuation, but that's like typical. It's a market. Markets go up, markets go down. However, Israel is such a small country with such a small economy that geopolitical events are going to impact the currency in major ways. So what I did over here in this chart is just to show when a person would look at a chart, just to try to give what we call Torah Shabbal Peh, the oral law. Why is it that rates spiked, they fall? What can affect it? So right over here, you see the start of the war in October. So the exchange rate jumped up because the world was believing that Israel is in peril. So when Israel is in peril, a dollar, this is for US dollars. I could have done a similar chart for pound sterling or Canadian, Australian, but we handle all currencies. But again, the dollar is the most commonly traded, so that's why I'm going to focus on that. So when Israel is appearing to be weak, the dollar is relatively stronger. So each dollar buys more shekels. So for an overseas buyer, that's exactly when you want to be transferring your money because the price for property is fixed in shekels. It used to be that prices would be quoted in dollars. However, for the past probably 15 years, prices are in shekels. So you have to get into your mindset. If you're buying property in Israel, you have to think shekels. And so at this point, your dollars bought you a lot more shekels. However, as the war went on, people saw that Israel's not going anywhere. We're strong. We're gonna fight, and we're going to win. And that led to a recovery. And this is what you're seeing as the rates are going down. You're seeing the Israeli shekel strengthening, and it went back to the pre-levels, to the pre-war levels, and even further strength. And again, as the war went on, there were fluctuations, but again, still normal. Then right over here, this is November, middle of November 24. This is where no Hezbollah is no longer going to be a part to the war. So that causes even more strengthening. And what we've been seeing is continued strengthening, despite the news. But what I think is that what you can really see, what does the world really think about Israel? You can tell where they put their money. And where they're putting their money is they are buying shekels, not selling shekels. This is the area where they're selling shekels. When the more people are selling, that causes weakness. The more people that are buying, the more people that are investing in Israel, the more people that are believing that the Israeli economy is strong, that even though it seems geopolitically the world is against us, but that's not where people are putting their money. They're not betting with their money against us. They're betting with us. So that is what we're seeing over here. What's going to be the future? Nobody can tell. But in
So,
terms of right now, the Israeli economy is strong. So as people who are thinking about buying property in Israel, they should feel confident that it's a safe, strong investment.
so is it possible that because of this, that people, let's say they're buying in a year from now, can they set up an account with this transfer today, and then the phrase is park shekels or park dollars based on the currency rate?
So I definitely encourage people, even if you're thinking about a year in advance, to have a conversation with me, because what I'm going to do with you is we're going to strategize. I can't tell you when to buy your shekels. That's something that nobody can know. So anybody who tells you this is the rate or this is where the rate is going to be in 2 weeks, they're either lying to you or they're lying to themselves. So now, once you're talking about a year out, now we can talk strategy. And a lot of it is going to have to do with the person's kishkas. So some people say, look, I'm allocating $1 million, which is a lot of money to buy property. I don't have an extra $75,000 in case rates go down. So I will work with that person. So we will purchase the shekels in advance. This way they know exactly how much their currency can buy. And this way they don't have any more currency exposure. Other people, they they're the type of people that they like going on roller coasters when they were a kid. They're the ones who get a high of day trading, or they go to Atlantic City and they like playing blackjack. They get that rush. So they can take that same approach when it comes to currency, and they can take that $1 million, divide it into $100,000 increments, and buy throughout that time period. So I work with people to try to understand what is it that you're buying, and also what are you giving up. I mean, if a person is getting 4.5% interest in the States, I'll translate that to how many agorot they're willing to have the exchange rate go down because they're going to get on that interest. So we go deep into the weeds of math, and unless a person is very comfortable doing it on their own, I would really suggest to have a 5-10 minute call with me. We can do it as a Zoom, so I can throw up charts and I can show you and take out calculators. So this way you can get a handle on the exchange rates, because the exchange rates are going to be the number one factor that determines exactly how much the property is going to cost you in dollars.
So for the average viewer, who's there are two types of viewers. There are viewers who are thinking about buying property in Israel, but they're not there yet. Then, which that would be an amazing discussion for them to do some planning, if that's called planning, so to speak. However, there's a lot of viewers, and I'm sure we're going to start the process for them. Is that they might be hit with an offer that they've been accepted, recently. They've bought something either from abroad, they've come here, they're looking at an apartment, they made an offer, was accepted, and they're going, oh my gosh, I have a closing in 4 weeks. How do I get 20% over? And how do I start the process? And I've got 3 weeks to do it. So the planning is
So
for
in that
people
situation,
right.
what we're going to be doing is um, we're going to be compressing the time period. Where what that means is that there's not as much opportunity to take advantage of fluctuations. And also, for those who might not know, in Israel, you never send all of the money at once. Typically, if we can divide into new construction and existing property. So in new construction, it's going to be over a period of a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, even 5 years. So that will be an opportunity that we'll be able to, well, we might have to rush on the down payments, but we'll be able to have a conversation when it comes to the other parts. Also, even with existing property, typically there's a down payment that's made, an intermediate payment, and a final payment. So we'll be able to have conversations about how to structure the final two payments in a way that people will be most comfortable.
Great. Okay.
I wanted to discuss exactly how it is, what are the different possibilities for getting shekels over. So the way that most people think that they're going to do it is that they think that they're going to go to Chase Bank, the biggest bank in the world, and of course, they can Chase, they can send shekels, and they can. The issue is that Chase, and that's not just Chase, Bank of America, Citibank, all the banks, they charge 3%. So if anybody travels and they use their credit card when they come to Israel, and if they don't have a credit card that refunds the foreign currency fee, they're going to see a 3% haircut off of their money. So and it's typically the bank doesn't disclose this. They just say some people, they don't even do it at the bank. They just do it online. And they say, do you want to send dollars or shekels? And then they choose shekels. And then it's going to tell you your dollars buys this many shekels. But there's no disclosure of how much it is. And if one actually does the math, they're going to find 3% is getting lost. So that's the first way. Second way is banks in Israel. Banks in Israel, they it's very different than Chase, and that's being very kind. At Chase, they're going to charge you a lot for it, but they're going to be the sweetest people in the world to you. They welcome you to the bank. They'll give you a drink when you come in. They'll smile, and they're happy to, yes sir, no sir. They'll do everything. Israeli banks have the opposite approach. They, for the most part, don't want to deal with Americans because Americans have a lot more exposure for the banks. The Americans, because of even going back to the Obama years, that the Israeli banks used to not be so careful with taking American money, then they have had to pay so much fines of more than $1 billion collectively by the Israeli banks. So they're very nervous when it comes to Americans because they don't want to pay any more fines. And also in general, Israeli banks are not the service model that people are used to. And Israeli banks, they basically look at customers and they say, we're doing you a favor by holding your money for you, by making the payments for you. So you're going to pay for that favor, and we expect you to say thank you for the service we're giving you. You can expect the same level of service as going to the post office or the Social Security office or the DMV, basically. You're dealing with clerks who have very little to no incentive to do anything to make your life easier.
Plus, it's in Hebrew.
Oh, yeah. That's assuming that it's not just is in Hebrew, is it? I heard so many times from clients that they're getting calls at 3 in the morning because that's when the banker is ready, is doing it. There's no consideration
Yeah,
of that the person's abroad. And not only that, typically the banks close at 2 p.m.
right.
So before someone even woke up, the bank is already closed. So, and it's difficult. But let's say somebody's, they have a bank account, they want to use it. So just to understand, Israeli banks charge three separate times. They charge first, they charge, I know people are going to think I'm crazy, but is he confirm what I'm saying? They charge a fee for the privilege of them accepting your money. To send money, when you send foreign currency to a bank, they charge a fee to deposit the money.
Yep.
Separate, they're going to charge a commission when you want to change the money from dollars to shekels. And the last way they get you is the rate that they offer you is not a good rate. So when you add it all in, you're at about 1 to 1.5%. So half the price of Chase, but you're still paying. You're going to pay for it in the lack of service, the lack of it's not an easy experience, especially if you're in America and you need to have checks made, you need to have pay vouchers. It's can be quite complicated, and the online interface, typically the English version is not as comprehensive as the Hebrew version, so it's just not a pleasant experience. The final way, and this is the way that most people do it, is that they use a transfer company, where it's a company that's designed to facilitate everything. When I say everything, I mean everything with a capital E. From the till you get the keys, I can take care of all the payments on your behalf. This includes paying the tax bill, paying the broker, paying the lawyer, paying the seller, paying the kitchen cabinet maker, the candlestick maker, everything. The only thing that I need is that whoever I'm working with, they have to submit a proper invoice, and they can't have any tax withholding from the government. And you wouldn't believe, sometimes people, they're having their kitchen cabinets put in, and they send me a picture from literally the back of the envelope that somebody wrote something, with their bank details in the bottom. So we can't accept that. But any normal person that's giving a normal invoice, we can help.
Okay.
So what I did over here is just a infographic, just to this was from September 5th, so last year. Again, I can update it, but the relative numbers are going to be the same. So this just shows how many shekels, if a person changed $250,000 at 3:30 on Thursday, 5th of September, how many shekels they would have with Chase. Again, Chase, Citibank, they're all the same, 3% loss. In Israeli bank, so you see it's more than Chase, and this is using us. How many more shekels that you would have, and this is just 250,000. A
Right.
typical price is going to be more than $1 million for apartments in Israel right now. The savings is going to be much more dramatic.
So how I like to translate it is $33,000, the shekels difference. 33,000 shekels can buy you most of your appliances in an apartment. So,
Yep. The way I
so
like to tell the people is that working with me, the next time you fly to Israel, you'll fly business. That's the savings.
there you go.
Meaning, I'm not going to save you $1 million. I'm not going to save you $500,000. I will save you $2,500 per 100,000 that you're sending.
Or an upgrade to a kitchen.
So, so with this, we've covered just
Right.
before in terms of the challenges working with the Israeli banks. It's again, if you've spoken to someone who's actually dealt with it, they'll tell you just working with Israeli banks is it's not pleasant. I'm not saying it's not doable, but it's not going to be a pleasant experience. I give out my cell phone freely. People call me during the day, during the night. If I can't talk, I can't talk. I tell them, I'll call you back. But you're not going to be able to have this relationship with your Israeli banker, and it doesn't matter even if you have, $1 million on deposit there. That you're not going to get the service that a typical foreigner is looking for. You want to have someone who's going to hold your hand through the entire process. You want to make sure that your broker is going to hold your hand through the process, that your lawyer is going to be available to you during your hours. I look at myself as a real estate professional in the finance field, and I am available to my clients. I also travel frequently, so I'm in the States usually 4, 5, 6 times a year, so I'm meeting with clients there also. So it's very important that you surround yourself with a team that's going to be looking out for your interests, a team that has done it thousands of times before, a team that works well together. so that you don't have the headaches. It's buying property in Israel can be a I won't say it's a fun process, but it doesn't have to be a miserable process. And the typical times that people have bad experiences, it's when they try to do things on their own. They try to be a chacham. They try, and again, because I deal with people that, they're very successful in their home countries, and they know how to do everything. So they think that they're going to teach us Israelis how to do things the right way. And they're the ones who typically discount the advice that we give. They don't follow our instructions, and they're going to teach us the right way to do things. Those are the people who they hit a brick wall, and then we have to clean up the mess afterwards.
Exactly. Okay.
So, so as I said, the advantages of working with us is that we're going to take care of everything. There's no need for you to have a bank account in Israel up until you get the keys, because I can't pay your light bill and I can't collect rent for your apartment. So at some point, you'll need to have a bank account and you'll have to bite the bullet. And you're going to come back to me and you're going to say, "Oh, Daniel, you were right about everything you said about the banks." But you want until that time, let us take care of the hassle for you. One of the things that's nice with us is that we have online access. So we're big believers in transparency, that we believe you should be able to see your funds at all times. You can trade your funds with us from 8 in the morning till 8 o'clock at night. This way, when you wake up, you see the rate is good. It could be that the office is closed, but you can still have access to your funds. You can see all of your transactions. You can see all the money that came in. You can give us instructions to pay vouchers. We made a complete web, and also works on your phone as an app portal, so that you're able to do everything. And this is the most secure way. Like Izzy, for example, we don't email wire instructions to people. We don't even do it by WhatsApp, because we are so concerned that somewhere between us and you, the instructions can be manipulated and you're sending money to a Nigerian prince somewhere. So we have with the portal where you have to do two-factor authentication. It's connected to your cell phone, and only that way can you download the wire instructions. This way you know that it's exactly the wire instructions that come from us. At the same time, I say, give me a call. You want to verify it? We can do that as well. So what we talked about before, the question of when do I buy the shekels? So there's, as I said, there's different ways to do it. There is no one size fits all, and there's not to be, you can't predict. I personally like the idea of dollar cost averaging, because I don't know what the rates are going to be. So I know I'm not going to get it at the highest. I know I won't get it at the lowest. I'll have an average during that time period. But again, we accommodate however people feel comfortable. So now, because, as I said, there are lots of rules when it comes to sending money to Israel. These are rules that are both on the US side and also on the Israeli side. So what I try to do is to really break it into bite-sized pieces, so I'm not overwhelming people with too much work. There is what's called a KYC, know your customer. We need to know who we're dealing with. We need to know that the money that is being sent is legitimate. We have to know that taxes were paid. We're able to help with notary apostille service. So this is certain documents have to be notarized in a special way. We're able to help with everything, because again, since I've done this so many times, I know all the different parts that are involved in order to have the real estate deal. So I tell people, think of me as a resource. Let me know how I can help you. I know everybody in the field, both in the US side, the Israel side, in London, everywhere. And I'll do whatever I can to make it easier for you. For us, we have through the portal, that's where you register. You need to have pictures of your passport, your driver's license. Again, everything is basic and makes sense, but it does take some time. If everybody follows the instructions, we could typically open an account in a day or two. But it's not something that you can register today at 7 o'clock at night and send money half hour later. So I very much recommend people don't have me as your last call. I don't have to be the first call the broker, but already once you're seriously considering property purchase, it's worthwhile to give me a call just so that I can explain to you the steps so that that you're not waiting for me to do anything. I'll be waiting for you. And this way there will be as minimal pressure as possible because nobody likes pressure when it comes to buying property. And the way to mitigate lachatz, pressure, is time. So the more time that we have, the more choices you'll have when it comes to changing your money, the easier time you'll have getting the documents that are necessary, and we'll be able to accommodate. And again, at the same time, Izzy, I get calls, you know, I'm sorry I didn't call you before. My lawyer told me to call you, but I didn't. I'm signing in 2, 3 days. What can you do? So then that's where the pressure starts. We make it work, but it's a lot more pressure. And if it could be avoided, it's better to be avoided.
So here, here's what we're gonna do. Let's look at. I have a bunch of questions that I think our viewers are going to be asking. So, for example, where do you serve? In other words, which foreign countries can you go into and set up an account with Israel Transfer?
So basically, every country that Israel has diplomatic relations with, we can work with those countries. There are a couple of countries right now that are on sanctions lists. So even though like Russia, Ukraine, that right now Israeli banks aren't dealing with Russian money. Um, South Africa right now is having trouble because last year they were relegated to the naughty list for corruption. So it takes longer to deal with money coming from South Africa.
So I call you because Izzy told me to call you, and I go, Dan, I live in the U.S., Canada, UK, Australia, Western Europe. Um, how do you start the process? Do you fill out an application? What's the
So you
process?
fill out an application, which takes people usually about 4 minutes to do. I then work with your attorney to get your ID authenticated, so that if your Israeli lawyer is able to stamp your ID, there's a lawyer's stamp that all lawyers have in Israel. Then we can get your account open. If not, then I have to send a representative to take a picture of your ID. But we have representatives in most Jewish communities. It's usually not a problem in order to accommodate this. If you happen to be coming to Israel to look at property, let's meet then, because this way we can meet face to face. I always prefer face to face than over the phone or through Zoom. And then I can also authenticate your ID. So that's the first step. Second step is we already started having a conversation about what are the documents that we're going to need. And again, they're the same. We need to know where the money comes from, how the money was earned, and it'll depend whether or not the source of the funds are from each person sold a property, it's their savings from their work, their retirement, they won the lottery, whatever the case may be. There's always a story that explains where money comes from. And
Under the
it
mattress
can
doesn't
be
work.
parents, whatever the story is, we discuss it, and then I'll tell you the documents needed to substantiate that.
Okay. So I call you, we fill out a form, you vet my ID, you source my funds, you decide, we make sure they're seasoned, as we say, that they came from a source that had been around a little bit, they didn't come fresh out of nowhere. And you open an account for me
Yeah.
in my home
At that
country or
point,
online. How does it work?
everything's online. At that
Okay.
point, you'll have access to the customer portal. That's where you'll be able to retrieve the wire instructions. And you'll be working with a customer service representative in my office as well,
Okay.
because we find it's very important to have that blend between the human touch and the technology. So through communication with your customer service representative, you'll get a green light to send the money. They'll say you are clear to send up to $2 million in the next 12 months, as long as it's coming from the source that you indicated, and the funds will be cleared right away.
So
It used to
I
be that
have
it
a,
would take a couple of days to clear the funds,
so
but
what does
now
it,
we've
what
gotten
does it
to the
mean? What
point
does it
where,
mean, the source? The source means a verified bank account.
well, no, source is the origin story of the money,
Hmm.
meaning meaning that so but yes, it'll be the bank account, meaning we're going to be asking which bank account the money's going to come from because we want to make sure that if Izzy is the one who's buying the property, we're going to be getting the money from Izzy and we're not going to be getting it from your third cousin twice removed.
Okay, but so here's an example. I buy a 3.5 million shekel property. It's roughly $1 million. I need, let's say, 20% down. So do the math, and and I told you that it's coming from my Citibank account.
Yep,
And you open up an account for me, and you say, "Izzy, you got a green light. Shoot the down payment money over because you're closing in 2 weeks, hopefully."
yep.
So now, all of a sudden, I decide to send it from my Chase account. Is that a problem?
Again, in a situation like that, what we might ask for is just like the statement from the Chase that shows that you have the money there. Or let's say you send it from the Citibank to the Chase. Again, we're not looking to make people's lives miserable. We just need to understand, where the money's coming from. Again, when it's coming from your personal bank account, that we're okay. Things get complicated when people want to send from a business. They want to send from a trust. They want to send from, you know, other types of sources. Where I'll give you an example where you have a grandparent who's sending the money for their granddaughter. So we have to actually show that they're related because they might have different names. They might have,
Right.
so we have to show family relationships. But this is all the prep work that we do to the point that the person that will get that, the green light.
Right. So this is very important when people are seeing this for the first time in preparation for buying a home, that they realize it's all about the setup, and and it's on them to properly prepare this information. Just like when
Yep.
you make Aliyah, there's a whole series and process of documents you need to provide, and it's the process. It is what it is.
It is a process, and just be straight with me is what I say. I can't stand it when people think that they're gonna try to work one over on me, or that they won't listen to instructions. Like we say, make sure that you're sending from your personal account, and they send it from their business account, and they think, oh, the money's there already, so deal with it. It doesn't work that way. We're highly regulated. It's we have to work according to what the regulators tell us, and it can cause delays. I'm not saying that we won't be able to get there, but we might need to have an extra letter. We might need to um, it might take us a couple more days to go through a compliance procedure. So just the best you can do is as early as possible have that conversation with me so that we can clear the path to make it as smooth as possible.
So if you could put a timeline together, if if we start today the process,
Hmm.
potentially I could be sending money through the portal, through my account, in a couple of days.
Yeah. So today's Sunday. It happens to be Sunday that you and I are talking. So I got, let's say, and again, this happened. I've had three new clients today. Two
Okay.
of them, I was able to get their ID ready from their lawyer. They will be able to, tomorrow, they're going to be getting the financial documents in place. If they send it to me early enough, they'll be able to send the money already tomorrow. If not, then Tuesday. Meaning it can be done pretty quickly, but the limiting factor is the client assembling the documents.
And okay, and so once you put it in the portal, and let's say there's a delay in the process for the transaction, so it's essentially like having a separate account that's yours, sitting there, um, at a certain value of shekel, because let's say the rate today is 3.22 or whatever it is. That's it's sitting there at 3.22. If
Well, no, let's be straight. If
Mhm.
a person sends $500,000, they will have $500,000 in their portal.
They don't transfer it until you ask them to. Okay.
No, we're a big believer that people should be able to pull the trigger themselves at the rate that they want. So you send dollars, we receive dollars. It sits as dollars. It could sit there for a week, 2 weeks, a month. You watch the rates. And then when it's a rate that you want, then you pull the trigger.
Right, which is,
So
but a lot of times people don't have that flexibility because they need the money in there for a reason.
so
So,
again, the more time, that's it goes back to what we were saying. The earlier we start, the more opportunities there are. The later,
mhm.
everything gets compressed.
I think we've done an excellent job on a money transfer 101 basis to kind of discuss the ins and outs and whys. It's not about Dan and Israel transfer being tough guys. This is all because the regulatory authorities in Israel are going to, do the same thing regardless of how you do it. But, if you listen to Dan and Israel transfer, you're going to be saved a lot of pain from just having a bank to bank story where you're not getting any information in a timely fashion.
Yep. And well, there's one other possibility that we didn't discuss, and that's where a lawyer opens up a trust account. So many lawyers do not, I should say all lawyers don't like doing this. There are some that do, that they still open up trust accounts for their clients, but most wish to avoid it just because it can take weeks and hours and hours and hours, and for the lawyer to open it up for the client. And again, you're still going to pay the higher rates. So, and you won't have that opportunity to trade the money when you want to trade the money. So it's still a possibility. So I want to just address that because if someone is, in a bidding war, by the time, because remember, once you see the apartment and you come to a handshake, so now everyone is supposed to be acting in good faith. However, they're not going to keep it off the market forever. If your lawyer is taking a while to negotiate the contract, because there are no boilerplate contracts in Israel, every contract is negotiated paragraph by paragraph. So if they're going back and forth, and the lawyer's trying to open up a trust account, and it's taking 2, 3 weeks, there is a very strong possibility. You're the broker, Izzy, so you can answer this better than I can. That you just might lose that apartment because you just can't close in time.
No, it depends on the apartment and the project, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It doesn't happen often, but there are, especially in Yerushalayim.
I'm talking on the
Yeah,
secondhand market.
yeah. In Yerushalayim, it's the Wild West. So you really need to listen to people like myself or Dan when we give you advice. We're not doing it for financial gain. We're doing it because we've been there, done that, and we're trying to save you a lot of pain. So, yeah, so that's what happens. Last but not least, I always get these questions, and it's going to sound silly, but I'm going to just bring it out there because I know somebody's thinking about it right now. What about cash?
Yeah. What about cash?
Right. Is
It's
there
good for
any,
wallpaper. It's good for the it used to be that people could come in with a suitcase of cash and try to buy property. Those days are long, long over. No legitimate lawyer will go near anything with cash. You mentioned cash, they're going to say, go look for someone else. If they don't, then I would look for a different lawyer. It's because now everything is registered with the tax authority. So the lawyer has to certify that that it's a legitimate transaction. So cash is not something that can be used. Besides it being illegal, I forgot what the number is. If it's 14,000 or 12,000 shekel, that is the limit for what a cash transaction can be in Israel. So I'm not saying there aren't certain sectors of the community that deal with cash more than others, but when it comes to buying property, no.
right, so
Um,
I wanted to hear the official response from Israel Transfer in terms of how it interacts with somebody. Because people bring it up, and I say the same thing to them.
Yeah. So, right. Again, it's even besides, again, we can't handle it. We can't handle cash. But um, it's something that to work on that level of cash, it means that you're working with, we'll call it the gray market at best, most likely the black market. And just think about who are the people who work the black market. You're talking about gangsters, you're talking about very unsavory people. And it's just, it's something that nobody should go near. It's something
No,
we
no, it can't be sourced. But there's always the question. Well, my grandparents did this. They want to give me that. They happen to have had it sitting in their living room for 10 years.
Yeah, oh, you know how many times I've heard people told me that the money was in a safety deposit box in Switzerland since the Holocaust.
Yeah,
So it has to be into a bank and it has to be you know, sourced.
amazing.
So
Okay, with that, this has been extremely educational. I think we covered a lot. Obviously, your contact information is up there. Um,
yeah.
my contact information is going to be up here in a minute as well. And uh, please reach out to Dan. Uh, he and Israel Transfer are of the highest level of professionals. And when you're buying in Israel property and it's definitely your first time, it's not worth cutting corners or trying to cut corners, and you'll learn the hard way. But in general, I'll go back to the phrase beginning of this seminar. Been there, done that works. So, Dan, really, really appreciate your time today. And hopefully this will be of value to a lot of our viewers. And thank you again.
And thank you so much and enjoy the rest of the summer.
And great, amazing.